Začenjamo z drugim delom današnjega dogodka, kjer bomo zdaj slišali dve predstavitvi inspirativnih ali pa vsekakor zelo bogati s primeri iz tujine. Najprej z nami dr. Daniela Patti z predavanjem Krožni tokovi virov, civilno-družbeni alternativni modeli za naša mesta. Daniela Patti je italijansko-britanska arhitektka in urbanistka, je soustanoviteljica in direktorica organizacije Utopian Research and Action, sedeže v Rimu in na Dunaju. In danes bo pač predstavila nekatere evropske pobude, ki razvijajo in alternativne organizacijske in ekonomske modele in omogočajo mrežno organizacijo spontanih in različnih iniciativ z prebivalcev in pač oblikovanje nekih krožnih tokov materialov, znanja, ekonomskih virov na določenem območju. Sliši se komplicirano, ampak jaz zaupam, da bo zelo pregledno predstavljeno in kolikor sem uspel prebrati, zakaj gre, sem poln pričakovanj. Please, Daniela, that is yours.
So thank you very much. Good morning, and thank you to the courageous ones that actually came to the front, so not to leave them all alone here on my own. So I'm Daniela. I'm part of a team within Utopian, and we are we're planners, but we don't deal with spatial planning in the design, but we look more into processes and how people work together, very broadly speaking. So we were very happy to come here, to be invited, so once again, thank you for the invitation, to tell you a little bit about some of our research and our ongoing projects, and hoping to contribute to the discussion that is ongoing in your city and also in Maribor. And there is, as far as I understood, quite an active debate on circular economy in Slovenia. I'm sure not everything is pink and beautiful, and maybe it could be also an opportunity to raise, from at least the work that we did, some of the challenges that are within this, and maybe we would be very curious to know more about the Slovenian context, for which me and the other speakers also after are not so familiar with, so we really hope that you will also tell us a little bit about it. So if we talk about circular economy, one of the issues is which resources are we going to be talking about specifically. So just to be on the same page of everything, we're not only looking at it from a very strictly technical point of view, out of which maybe some of you are, and this is a very, very relevant aspect to be putting into the discussion. We definitely, if we talk about the environmental resources that we have available, and this is something that is here all between water, energy, food, and so on. But we have economic resources that are to be put, and the economic dimension that is to be put in the circular economy, as we also, Kai in the previous presentation was also explaining. We have cultural dimension. What does in cultural terms does circular economy mean? What is it, the cultural production in our cities? How does it affect it? And we have the social dimension. How are people actually going to be, are they going to be living in a circular economy system? And ultimately, if we look at any initiative, any project, any story, it will not be addressing only one of these aspects, obviously, isn't it? I'm sure in all of your projects you always encounter that these aspects are always interrelated. And how many of you are working in public administrations? Good number of you. So I'm sure you have as a daily challenge how are you going to work with the department next door, if maybe the politician is different, and there's a lot of challenges on how are you going to collaborate on some of the projects, because nothing is always so specifically segmented in departments when you have to implement a project on the ground. So the aspect of the organization is fundamental. How are we going to organize the people to be working together, with what tasks, with what timing, with what processes? And this is an issue that is not banal, and especially if we start talking about a new way of managing our resources, the way we also organize ourselves to be working together is no joke. We started working on, this is an example of a project that we had on the reuse of abandoned properties. I know that here in Maribor, actually, even the space we're in now, There's actually quite an active reuse of abandoned public properties from civic initiatives. This is not the case always throughout the whole of Europe, so I'm very curious to know more about what is happening here in Maribor. When we talk about all this multi-stakeholder approaches and managing all the different resources in a complex process, it starts becoming a bit abstract as a discussion. So we started to try and pinpoint a little bit of an example, and this, take it literally just as an example of a process, and I'm sure you can easily translate it to whatever it is that you specifically deal in your daily work. So if we have a space that we want to reactivate, we will have the role of definitely of the administration, especially if the property might be public. But we will have also private owners that are maybe in the properties nearby, that might be investing on some of the functions. We have the citizens or the NGOs that might be some initiators in the project, or even just the users or clients of the new activities. And we have different agreements to be done throughout the process that are done not in partnership of different partners. I see some of you are taking slides, please do. But also, I think all the slides will be also available as far as I was told, so you can also have it in a easier quality, also maybe more readable. This is an example because what is relevant is if we start looking, this is simply an example of a reactivation of a space. Now, if we start imagining, this does not take into account about what are the agreements that would take place if we start having the different functions. What happens if we have in that space? What type of agreements take place if we start having maybe some cultural spaces? What if we start having some production? What if we start having some maybe some leisure activities? And I think this space here is quite a good example. We're here having a lecture, but just downstairs is the cafeteria, and I know that they have this evening, I think, is a nice jazz concert or something. So there are different types of activities, and each one of the activities will require different agreement, different partnerships. And how are we going to put all this in together in the moment that we want to handle these resources in a more circular and inclusive way? I would like to tell you a couple of stories from that we encountered, that we worked. Our relationship with these stories are all different. We either worked with them or we advised them in some of their processes. So these are not projects that are run by us directly, but we are somehow good friends and a very close partnership with them. So I will try to tell you the story from Giacomo in Rome. This is a farmhouse in Rome. It's a public property. It was abandoned for 50 years, and in 2011, a civic initiative in Rome started a network of young farmers. You might know that in Italy, especially as a result of the crisis, there was a high unemployment rate, especially in youth. And a lot of people started saying, especially, Italian food, I think there's quite an association there going on. A lot of youngsters started saying, we can go back to the land. There is a possibility nowadays to reinvent the agricultural production in a way that can also be economically sustainable. Unlike maybe our grandparents that might have left the agricultural land because it was no longer more attractive. So they started pushing the public administration because they realized that there was a lot of agricultural land owned by the city that had been abandoned for 50 years. Now, I don't know how acquainted you are with agricultural practice, but land, if it's not constantly taken care of, it loses its properties of the fertility and so on. So basically, they had to have a lot of work to be able to make them productive again. So actually, what happened is they made a lot of pressure on the region and the city council to be able to create a public competition for a cooperative of young farmers to be taking on these pieces of land. So finally the competition was opened in 2013, and in 2014 the land was assigned. The agreement was that there would be a contract for 15 years. There would be an investment from the municipality of an amount of €200,000 for example, the renovation of the farmhouse. Now, I'm not sure how much you can see it from this picture right now, but the building is falling to pieces. So obviously, it's the economic, as we see here, multifunctional spaces. They wanted to have agricultural production, but they also wanted to have educational facilities. They also wanted to have a restaurant, because obviously, we need to think in a more integrated way to be able to reach the economic sustainability of the project. Today, we're at the end of 2017, and unfortunately, the renovations of the building have not been done yet. They are anyway paying a rent of 200 euro per hectare. The land is 22 hectares, out of which only 13 are agriculturally productive, and still not at full capacity yet, because it requires a lot of work to be doing. So, what do we learn of this story? Is it a sad story? I hope it's not a sad story. I hope it's just a story that is taking a bit longer than we had hoped for to reach a good state. But for those of you who are working in the public administration, if we start thinking of processes and so on, if we open a competition, we have a very ambitious and very interesting project of opening the opportunity of new employment in new forms of agriculture that is not only traditional but is going to be innovative and so on. We have to accompany the process on a longer term. It's not sufficient to just let them get on with it and just give them the land, because if we don't accompany the whole process also with what are the responsibility and the agreements that were made, this is not going to happen. Now, I don't know, maybe public administration in Slovenia is super efficient and it never happens if you don't fully respond to the agreement that you had originally made, but I'm sure sometimes it happens here as well. So I can only recommend, if you do come to Rome, please get in contact with us and we'll be happy to take you to visit this, because they are doing a lot of them, no matter how hard it is, they're doing a lot of very interesting projects with schools, with refugees, with local inhabitants from the neighborhood, producing and distributing their biological produce, and they were also one of the ones to push the public administration to also have community gardens, so that also the neighborhood can also have some production. And again, for example, which is not easy, again, I'm not sure how acquainted you are with agriculture, but there is no water point here. And the water is approximately, I think they told me, more than 200 meters down, which is a lot. It will cost approximately 130,000 euro to create a well. This is a huge investment. So actually, it's quite interesting. People are very inventive, and they started looking into agricultural production from North Africa, because as you know, there's quite a water scarcity there, and we're looking into, probably with climate change in Italy, we will more and more have to look into this. So production, agricultural production that has a very, very little water consumption. So sometimes looking into civic initiatives and their difficulties can also help us a little bit to adjust to what might be our future challenges in a more creative way. But on their own, they will remain always at a very small scale. So thinking about the scale of this project and how we can make it grow is something for which the administration has a very, very relevant role. Now, I'm not sure how it's going to be with the video. And it works.
The old market hall, which is owned by the municipality of Bratislava, and we pay rent of €1 annually. So it's very, very small rent, of course, but we have to invest into the building 120,000 euros every year. Basically, we generate some kind of income, so we are self-sufficient.
No. Technology is not there. We'll get there. Sorry about that.
It should work with the translate. Maybe you start with it.
Okay, wait. You'll get there. We will bring you to Bratislava soon and meet Jan. We will get there. I think we're going to have to listen to Jan again. Sorry, but...
The old market hall, which is owned by the municipality of Bratislava, and we pay rent of €1 annually. So it's very, very small rent, of course, but we have to invest into the building 120,000 euros every year. Basically, we generate some kind of income, so we are self-sufficient in terms of financing. We are not connected with the city in terms of budget, and we generate our own income from primarily two sources. The first source are the permanent tenants of the building. The second one are the ad hoc tenants, the tenants of the whole inside of the building, so which we rent for either public or private events. non-profit or for-profit events. And of course the prices differ, so we always adjust it. Who is the person who's going to use the hall? And if it's somebody who's oriented for the profit purposes, the rent is higher. If it's somebody in non-profit sector, then of course the rent is lower.
So this is the case of Bratislava. So the selection of the case studies we try to have as a little, let's say, red thread, the food and public and civic cooperation out of the many topics that could be addressed for the circular economy, because we thought it brings in quite nicely the issue of procurement, the issues of public property, the collaboration. So it could be applied to any other resource, that it could be energy, but food is probably also one of the ones that somehow is also with a lower threshold. And the issue, for example, how is it in Maribor? Do you have problems with the management of the food markets, or are they all flourishing and active?
They are not regulated yet.
Sorry?
They are not regulated yet.
Okay. Because in a lot of cities when we went to a lot of food markets, because of the change in the distribution, production, distribution, consumption, and have been one of the public properties that have been suffering the most. So it doesn't go without grey zones, the case of Bratislava, because they had to involve a lot of commercial activities within the market in order to sustain 1 day of market per week. But the added value is, in case it wasn't very clear from the audio, that they pay a symbolic rent. It's an NGO paying a symbolic rent of €1, but they have to invest 120,000 euro per year on the renovation of the building. It's a lot of money, 10,000 euro, but actually they have already managed to pay in advance for the whole next following year, because they've managed to make it economic. They were lucky, the location of the market is very central. I'd like to bring you to Vienna. I know that Slovenia and Austria have very strong historical ties, so I'm sure you know very well what happens in Vienna. I don't know whether you will know the case of the Bioforschung and the EcoCauf initiative. I will say a few words, hoping that it's not totally known to all of you. So the Bioforschung is a farm owned by the city of Vienna let's say, for those of you who might know Aspern, the new development area, it's nearby there. It's an agricultural land where the city since 1993 is experimenting on biological agriculture. You might know that the city of Vienna is one of the biggest landowners, not only of housing, but also for agricultural land. And they do trainings to farmers and so on. But one aspect that I would like to share with you, aside of biological studies and production that they might have here, which is all very interesting, and if you are curious about these things, do get in contact with Bernhard, because he's absolutely he will be happy to tell you all about the bees and all the types of projects that they have on the farm. But one very interesting thing that they have is, as a public administration, you have public procurement for a lot of services, right? The city of Vienna, in 1998, decided to have what they call EcoCauf, so eco-purchase. So the agreement was that 30% of all public procurement expenditure had to go on environmentally friendly solutions. Now, obviously, this means that if they buy cleaning products for the cleaning of the public buildings, quota will have to be sustainable. This means a lot if they buy material, it will have to be, I don't know, chairs and so on. But this also means that if they have to buy food, the city of Vienna provides approximately 100,000 meals every day between schools, retirement homes, hospitals, and so on. This is a lot of food. And the requirement, therefore, is that at least 30% of this has to be from biological production, from possibly nearby. There's a big issue about procurement. Those of you working in procurement issues know better than me that it's difficult to assign that the producers have to be from a neighboring area, but they've managed to find criteria for which they managed to select predominantly local producers. And that you have to produce a range, and actually they're very proud of the fact that they've managed to have a production that is between 30 and reaches up to 50% of biological food production in kindergartens. That's quite impressive, I would say. Maybe the less pink side of the story is also, this is something that if we want to start thinking about, for example, circular economy, local production, new forms of production and distribution in our cities, there is an issue concerning how much can local producers actually produce. If you have to have 100,000 meals every day, you need to have a lot of food, and you need to have a lot of food regularly. And if you have biological local producers, maybe small scale, it's not always easy to be able to provide all the necessary food on time in the quantities that are needed. So I think within there, although everything is absolutely very, very interesting, I think there is a lot, and there is a willingness from the side of the administration. There are some challenges at times between what can be actually also provided by the small private sector that probably is having also challenges on investment that they can do. And I think this might be also something, I think also Francesca in her presentation will, because just yesterday we were talking about it also, so I think this will be something that she will be also providing some more hands-on experience of how it's difficult sometimes. We have this very beautiful idea of collaboration and circularity, but then we have some very concrete challenges in how things are done on a day-by-day. And this is why it's very important that the public administration, and how many of you are coming instead from maybe civic organization or NGOs or something similar? Okay, so it's very important that you lot manage, and the private sector manage to speak together, because otherwise you will be developing policies that are not really very responding to how things are done realistically on the ground. The last case, if I have a few more minutes, I would like to tell you about if the slides go. Can you help me with going a bit forward? I don't know what I've done. Maybe we just stay in Vienna. I would like to take you to Southern Europe, and I would like to take you to Madrid as a little last project on a very interesting project on circular economy and waste management that they did, connecting again markets, agricultural land. So it would be a nice. No, it's froze. Well, this creates a little bit of suspense. So before we go to Madrid,
And I expect it to work.
Yes, thank you. Maybe the videos were a bit heavy for the.
Some directness that
Just the right presentation was broken. Sorry, Sean.
Okay, so maybe I will tell you, I'm sorry, then if we get to the video, I will show you the video, and we will have Beffa explaining her project, the project of her team in way more detail than I can, and with a way more emphasis than I can, but in the meantime I will tell you this project. And as far as I know, also the city of Maribor was recently awarded an EU funding, Urban Innovative Actions on Circular Economy, and from what I could read from the website, it's also related to food and circular economy. This is the very little I have read about it, but so I'm also very curious if anybody of you is involved somehow in it, to also know a little bit more about it and how you're planning on addressing it. But the case of Madrid is quite interesting. Madrid is a very big city. Madrid is also a city with historically not a very good waste management system, as far as I know Slovenia has at the moment. So they have had some pilot projects. I can see some faces. Well, we're not perfect. I'm sure it's not perfect here either, but in comparison to the European average, it's probably much higher. It is, yes? Yes. So, okay, yes, thank you. So, you're lucky you'll get Beffa to explain the project.
Estoy aquí para presentaros el piloto de Madrid Agrocomposta. Es un piloto que hemos lanzado de base comunitaria en la ciudad de Madrid. Está basada en los círculos virtuosos que genera la economía circular. La economía circular es una normativa de la Unión Europea que a partir del año 2020 se va a tratar de reducir todos los residuos, tanto orgánicos como industriales, dentro de los países de la Unión Europea. Lo que estamos intentando es generar una descentralización del servicio de basuras completamente orgánicas. Las basuras orgánicas ahora, igual que el resto, tienden a ir a las incineradoras y lo que pretendemos es alimentar la tierra que nos alimenta. ¿Cómo? Generando un circuito cerrado económico donde recogemos la basura orgánica de mercados municipales, de escuelas, de distintos ciudadanos que quieren participar o de huertos urbanos. Los recogemos y los llevamos a huertas de proximidad en el entorno de Madrid. Hemos elegido huertas de menos de 30 kilómetros para conseguir reducir o por lo menos no incrementar los gases de efecto invernadero. Estos residuos orgánicos después sirven para su compostaje en las huertas y de tal manera que los insumos vuelvan otra vez a la ciudad de Madrid. De esta manera generamos un circuito cerrado de economía circular que estará en línea con las políticas que intenta marcar la Unión Europea en este momento.
So, could those of you there at the back read the subtitles in English? Okay, so what happens is this was a pilot project that ran for 3 months. And it was working on a neighborhood scale. So the hub was the Mercado de San Fernando. So one of the markets became one of the hubs to collect the organic waste from the market and the nearby schools and households willing to take part to the pilot project. And then they worked with, if I remember correctly, 6 farms within, let's say, 30 kilometers from outside of the Madrid city center to be able to create the compost that then was sold back to citizens or used by the farmers. Now, this is a very, very small-scale project, but what is interesting is at the time when we spoke to Genovefa, this was approximately a year and a half ago. In the meantime, the City of Madrid also won an urban innovative action project, in which the project of Genovefa, together with a lot of other projects, are being partners in the project in order to create a network of initiatives. So, whilst this initiative can only handle a very limited amount of organic waste, if done in a network within the city, you can multiply the effect. And also, this is the added value and the very important role of the public administration in this, that you have the possibility of having an overview of the whole process, which is very complex. We know that it's impossible to have a complete overview of this, but this is where the difference, where we cannot imagine that civil society will be doing everything in parallel, independently, and this is why but they can develop some innovative projects that you would have difficulty in developing on your own. So this is why the partnership in this is absolutely fundamental. But we invite you to really think, and this is something that requires also trainings, and in brackets, I think this is also why seen as Christian from the URBACT Secretariat is also here. Capacity building programs such as URBACT and others that the European Union or maybe your national government are promoting are very valuable opportunities to learn how to work together, how to bring the different resources, both physical, both social, the partnerships, the resources and the time together in a process that is actually more effective towards the goal that you will be addressing. This said, we were lucky, it froze again, but this was actually, I just had a thank you slide, so I can just thank you in voice. And I can just say that if any, I think the slides will be delivered to you, but if any of you are interested at cooperativecity.org, you find the videos and the written interviews, so you're very welcome to browse through. And some of the initiatives that we spoke about are in the book we recently published that is available for free, both in paper and online, so we're very happy. And we'll be having also a discussion about this evening, thanks to the collaboration with the Fox. Thank you very much. So you're very welcome to also join us in a further discussion about this. But maybe now I would pass on to maybe have a bit of feedback from your side.
Thank you very much, Daniela. Vprašanja. Predlog za kakšen primer ali pa ilustracijo.
Before your presentation, we were listening about really grand vision for European cooperation. Could you try to connect these local examples that you could with that grander vision? So how to connect these macro and micro levels to some, I don't know, macro levels?
Wow! If I had a solution for this, I think I would deserve a job at the European Commission. No, but, oh, sorry. Thank you. Yeah, sorry. No, but I think what it is that I think the collaboration between the different levels is like when we say about the public administration and civic or private sector working on the ground. Also the EU level will not know how things are actually developed on the ground concretely. And this is why if you talk about waste management, this is something that is done locally, usually by municipal level. So you can have directives from the EU coming, but then you have to translate this at a local level. And you will have to have the different stakeholders on board to translate it into what actually makes sense in your local context, because probably you had a waste management system before the new directive arrived. For example, the city of Vienna now actually is extremely concerned about, they just had I listened to a presentation of theirs just last week, that they're actually very concerned about the new director of circular economy, because they say the waste management issue that they have actually, they think it's already extremely good, but it's actually in conflict with the existing regulation. So actually they would have to change it to get hopefully the same result, but with a very big expenditure of money to be able to change the system. So there is a very big issue about also cost effectiveness when we develop and we aim, exactly as Kai was explaining, towards these new systems. And I think we have to, this cannot come from a very macro level. This is something that that you know on the ground, what makes sense in this local context. And we need to work together also towards a grand vision. But you're the ones that know how to translate it at local level. So I don't know if this answers your question to some extent, but
yeah.
Maybe just to jump in there. In my presentation, we had at the end a discussion whether it's a technological or the mindset that needs to be changing. And if we agree that it's actually a lot of the mindset that is important, that can't be dictated from European or national or whatever level. That needs to come from local initiatives. So from that side, I think it needs to work together, that we have the local initiatives which show how things can work and how the mindsets can change. And then we can accompany that with directives that make it more complicated or anything else. But we need the ground level work to make this European picture actually working at the end.
If I may jump in as well, because I think we talked about yesterday evening, it's a crucial issue. We have the top level working, and then we have the bottom-up initiatives which are innovating actually and are like really the public of the topic. But in between come the states and the municipalities and big corporations, and I think this is why initiatives that was presented by Anja and so national level and macro-regional level initiatives somehow jump in and they try to connect the different initiatives. I think this works, which is very difficult actually, and but these are crucial parts of the whole story somehow, the transition, I think.
But if I may comment on your statement, it is a big question where the determination will be, because we have a lot of players in this story, which there are.
Sorry, now I was speaking in microphone.
Yeah,
of course. Thank you. Yes, I will just connect on your, I would say, comment, and I think it is unnecessary to decentralize all things because you must know when you have a lot of parties in one place on geographical significance, we can say at the end we are more tangible. And this is the, I would say, the strategy how to come to the output, the better output for the less unemployment, something like that. Because if we have a lot of, I would give an example, offices, or maybe, I don't know, climate change, we can say that at the end we will have a lot of knowledge in one accumulated place. But if we will have a centralized thing, or model, something like that, then we will have only a few good, I would say, experts, which will know this area as well as possible from the international viewpoint. So here is a lot of open, I would say, possibilities or challenges, opportunities, how to come to better, I would say, environment-friendly awareness or something like that. So let's show my comment or viewpoint about the connection with your comment or statement. Thank you.
Še kakšno vprašanje?
Oh, I've got one question.
Okay, Maybe.
Daniela.
What do you think your opinion about the greenhouses in our area? What do you think about the greenhouses in our area? We were here now for a few days. And what your
Actually, arrived last night. I put my...
Okay, one day, I don't know if it is now, but what is your opinion about the greenhouses? How does this concept work in our environment? Will it be possible to implement it, or it's difficult?
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe we connect.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
And then I'll try to...
One, yeah.
I have a short question. Is there any region in Europe that leads in the circular economy thinking, and is there one that is that stays behind, or is it universal, let's say, understanding? What is your opinion on that?
Very difficult ones. Okay, so very briefly on the greenhouses, I must say I hope maybe we can talk about it more, because I confess I don't know well enough the economic context here in the production. And concerning the issue, I think there is an issue of scale which is very interesting. I don't know whether it's specifically about geographical regions. It's to do maybe with local cultures, maybe that yes. But I think there was a bit also what Kai was mentioning about the scale. I think in larger cities we see that the scale is made maybe more on the neighborhood level, with all the limits that that entails. And we see also that maybe there are like a bit smaller cities. Maybe the size of Maribor actually is a nice size, because it's not a megalopolis, but it's of a size for which you can have some actions that have some unity on the entire territory. And I think one of the big challenges, if we want to look at the circular system, is an issue of scale and of unity of your actions. And I think this is going back to translating into practice from what we've seen and what also Kai was saying about why big cities will have challenges. If you look at the case of Madrid and the waste management, they're doing a very interesting pilot, but it's only a pilot in a neighborhood. And to bring the pilot on a city that actually is also very large, with millions of inhabitants, there's an issue there that is a huge, it's very difficult also to centralize some of the decisions, because although we want to decentralize, there is always this very difficult equilibrium between centralizing and decentralizing who decides, who coordinates. So I think in this sense, I can imagine that maybe it's more an issue within the given cultural situations of the size in which you can actually handle it. Maybe we can talk further over the coffee. Okay.
That's it. No, it's Slovenia. You have to wait a little bit, for questions. Maybe.
We can talk more over coffee anyway, so that would be very nice. Thank you very much,
Daniela. So now to the last of the foreign guests, last but not least. Torej, zadnja naša tuja gostja je Francesca Miazzo. Njeno predavanje ima naslov The Wasted City, pristopi k ustvarjanju krožnih mest. Francesca je soustanoviteljica in direktorica fundacije Cities, po narodnosti Italijanka, deluje pa v Amsterdamu. Svojo ekipo si prizadeva prebivalce mesta polnomočiti, da sami zaženejo in poganjajo inovativne prakse, ter jih dolgoročno vgradijo v lokalno gospodarstvo in okolje. So, yeah, we are looking forward to the presentation. Francesca, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. I will try to be as entertaining as possible, because the morning was full of content and learning. So, yeah, Francesca Miazzo, I founded Cities. It's a foundation that I founded when I was still studying metropolitan studies, and I loved how cities were developing, but I wanted to do something. I'm a doer by nature, but I'm a very curious person, so I tend to analyze and do something. So this is what we do at Cities. We check at global urban development problems and we try to develop solutions. So this is our slogan, and the method is very simple, and I'm happy that we've been talking about changing system or systemic issues, because that's actually what we're trying to do at Cities. So we look at a global problem, we talk to people, that's our method, we talk to people as much as possible. Daniela has been working on that as well, doing the book. And that's exactly the way to understand how to make the real change. What are the things that people need to change, or what are the things that people will never change? So talking to people for us is one of the most important aspects of developing innovation. And we look at the system and we develop something within the system, with the system, to change it. I will go through our career at Cities to make you understand our path towards circular economy and circular city making. We started with Farming the City long time ago, we were looking at the problem of global food system and food systems in general, and then we started looking at the local food system in Amsterdam, and we divided also in micro food system for every little district, and we worked a lot with people on understanding just what I said. What do you like about the food situation in your neighborhood? What would you like to do? What are the innovative solutions that you think could be applied? What are you doing? And we talked to the innovators. We created a platform and we did a big analysis. And then for the first time, all this kind of knowledge that was very academic about food systems and sustainability and localization became available to everybody through a big exhibition where we showed all the results of what are the innovators in the food system in Amsterdam, what they want, what they need, and what to go next. So I think this is, we are talking a lot about circular economy because everybody talks about circular economy, but the point is how to understand circular economy. When looking at the food system for the first time, we stopped looking at products and we started looking at process. When you have like a piece of meat in front of you, that's not a product. That's something that has been produced, has been processed, has been transported, and now is being consumed. And looking at everything that you consume or you create in your life, thinking about it as a process rather than a product, is the key to understand circular city making and circular economy. Like everything in our life can become circular if you look at the process that made it, created it. So we started looking at the food system and we said, okay, we want to work with people and we want to check every part of the system and create innovation, just as an experiment on innovative practice. So of course we went through the whole urban farming approach, and we collected a lot of experience in working with people and creating awareness about the subject and making all sorts of events and activities and educational, and also we made a big event in October for the local farmers where we did it all. We did it all until the point that we realized that we were not the only ones that were working on localizing food systems and making food systems more sustainable. And we created a publication which is called Farming the City, where we look at urban agriculture as a way to create more awareness within the community, and not as an economic solution, but as a social solution in the city. So we have a lot of global knowledge about the subject, and we have a lot of experience about it. But here comes the next big step in the work of the foundation. All of the examples that I show you are temporary, are funded by subsidies, and are not going to make any impact in the life of people. Okay, they can create a little bit of awareness, but people are not going to change the way they eat because of this. So we said, okay, let's analyze where are the innovative, what are innovators doing in the food system in Amsterdam? Everybody was working on consumption spaces, like new markets, new market areas, new marketplaces, new shared kitchen for startups, or production method, the biodynamic wine, the special brewery, or the organic farmer. What about transport? Where is, what's happening to transport? So we did an analysis of it's in Dutch, but it has the English subtitle. I don't, this is a documentary like 10 minutes, so we don't go through that. But the point is that we asked all the local farmers around Amsterdam, how do you transport your food? And what came out is what we call the urban farming food consumption paradox. The more you eat local food, the more you congest and pollute your city. Which is, like, from a circular perspective, is a paradox. Like, what should I do then? Because every farmer comes with this little polluting van inside the city and creates pollution and congestion. So we developed Foodlogica, and for the first time we stopped thinking temporary, we stopped thinking about our awareness raising, but we start thinking long term, and we start thinking, okay, let's change the system. We literally worked ourselves to build a modular and scalable solution to transport local food, so we work a lot with local food brands, within the city center with sustainable means. We have electric cargo bikes which are charged with solar panels, and this is Foodlogica. It's operating since 3 years now. We're going through a big growth. We're getting new vehicles, and we are in the first, let's say, first round of investment. We're going to work on becoming bigger, because although we are saving the size of 4 African elephants of CO2 emissions per year, we're not making enough impact. This should be much bigger, and this is the point. Like, scalability comes, unfortunately, with economies of scale. You need vertical integration, and you need to work more with the system to make circular city making a reality. So this is where we're going with Foodlogica. And this is the work we did with the food field. And when you think about the food system, there is one big chunk that I didn't mention, which is waste. So when we were looking at it, waste became so big that we couldn't just approach it within the Farming the City project. We had to go through waste, and especially we started with plastic, because in the Netherlands, plastic packaging related to food is ridiculously a very big problem. So we read a lot of books about plastic, and wonder what? Plastic was invented as a very good material back in the days when, let me check if I have this, yeah, when if you wanted a comb or any product, you had either to chuck down some trees or kill some animals for ivory. So they used plastic, they invented plastic as a sustainable solution. The problem is that, and it's still a very useful solution for some operations, but the problem is that down the line of consumption history, this became a little bit unmanageable. So this is where we started to check what's the problem related to waste, and I mean, I'm sure we are all on the same page, so I will go very slowly through this. But this is the issue. You buy a product, you pay of which 95% is packaging. You throw away 95% of this product. You use the product hopefully enough to be happy with your purchase. You pay a waste management company to pick up your waste. This waste management company then sells this waste back to China. Now China closed the doors. It's another issue. We'll talk about it later, but that's how it was. You sell it back to China, where they recycle it and they sell it back to you to use it for 5 seconds. And this is where everything got wrong. So we decided again, okay, global problem, local solutions. I live in this part of town, the studio of cities is in this part of town, so we started talking with people there. It was very easy to do. In 2015, we were focusing on new plastic, and we started asking people, why you recycle, why don't you recycle, what would make you happy to recycle more, what you know is never going to happen in your household concerning to recycling, what are the biggest barriers. And we didn't only ask people, we asked institutions, we asked cultural centers, we asked sport clubs, we asked all the local shops in the neighborhood, we asked everybody about plastic. So we had a picture and we did a big analysis of the social composition and what is this neighborhood, what are we working on. So we created, and we did of course a big analysis of the plastic policy in the Netherlands and in Amsterdam, so we knew everything, more or less. So then we knew that there were 3 things that were not working well. Plastic reprocessing. There is a big and wealthy plastic industry, recycling industry in the Netherlands. They don't have enough material. I don't know if okay. So what we did, we created a lab and we promised, we asked the neighborhood, what do you want us to do with your plastic? And they asked us to make more green in the neighborhood. And this was the 3D model and this was what actually came out. So that was a good thing, to put a tree in a park. Anyway, surrounded by plastic. Anyway. And then we knew that there was not enough awareness concerning the issue of plastic, and the students and children, but even families and even companies, they didn't know how was it working. So we made an educational program with a Plasticaholic Anonymous meeting, asking people how many times have you touched plastic from when you wake up to when you went to work, and you wouldn't imagine how many times. Probably each one of you is touching plastic right now. That's the problem. And we made also a plastic archaeology course, so now we're working with brands and students to make people understand the qualities of plastic and what are the best ways to recycle. And yeah, those are some examples of our program. And this is how this is the most important part of the project, is the reward system. So after we asked everybody about their consumption and their pattern, their behavior, we came up with a solution, which we call the win-win-win. For every bag of plastic that people would give us, we would give them a coin, and this is a container. It would be, at the time, was a plastic coin made of recycled plastic, of course. And this coin could be redeemed in those shops in the neighborhood. So we activated shops to give discounts for people that would pay with the coin, which was created thanks to their recycling behavior. And then it was a very local project, but the Global Economic Forum decided to feature it. Video. We managed, otherwise it doesn't matter. Everybody's tired by now.
The first one?
Yeah. Okay, it doesn't matter. I go on in the meantime. So what happens, our system became a sample, like the Global Economic Forum featured it on Facebook, and we got like more than 12 million views. It became a little bit of a viral thing, and we got requests from cities all over the world. This happened at the beginning of the year, to do the plastic reward system in their city. So now we're working on that. Oh, yeah. So that was the beginning of the project, and we got a lot of attention from all over the world asking, can we implement Wasted in our city? No, we cannot, because Wasted was a very small project. It was an analog system, which means that the actual management of these coins, if you have 700 households, it's okay. If you have 1 million households, it's impossible. It's extremely expensive. So what we did, well, those are some of the results. So what we did, the municipality of Amsterdam came to us and said, we love this system, you need to make it better, we need to work together. You cannot work only with plastic, we have 4 main streams that we collect, and we need to raise the collection rates, so please work with plastic, textile, paper and glass, and let's make it, and I said, yes, but I need to digitalize. Okay, we support you for the digitalization phase. So this year, the first part of the year, we'll be working on digitalization, and that's the other video. I can translate. Go on the website and subscribe. Download a QR code scanner. Recycle your waste. That's my dog. Go to the local recycling facility, so the bins, and bring your waste there. Scan the QR code at the container. There are stickers on the containers with QR codes. Take a picture of your waste. And upload it. The Wasted team will validate the picture to see if you're really recycling, and once the picture is validated, you will get a digital coin. So now we're working with this new product, and we doubled the amount of households. The community management is a very big thing. We have somebody that works only on answering emails from people asking questions about how the QR code scanner works. But we're there, it's okay, we work all together, we're making it happen. We're making plans to test the redemption and separation rates. So now we're working on gathering a critical mass of people that will use the system, and then we will see how they're using the system. It's a long process, but that's what innovation is, especially when you co-create it together with the community. You cannot just go and implement something immediately. The project at the moment, so we used the first half of the year to create the system. We solved all the bugs during the summer, and then we did what we call the Big Splash campaign in around September, October. So right now we can see that it's finally working out. We have almost 3,000 people using the system, and also you can see from September to October they are starting to redeem their coins, and we're increasing also the amount of rewards. So we have a person that works 3 days a week only on gathering more shops. Those are all the shops. The dark ones are all the shops we are activating, and the white ones are all the municipal infrastructures that people bring the waste to. Those are some examples of our rewards, and that's how it works at the shop. You have a little QR, it's the same as the container. This is also interesting. The coin value fluctuates. This is what I like about this system. we don't give any value to recycling, it's the local shops that do that. And the local shops love it because first they say, oh, finally I can do something for this. Second, they love it because people on the welfare are most of our subscribers, so they can do something not only for the environment but also for poverty reduction. And third, at the end, they get more clients. So there is a benefit for them as well. We are located in North, that's where we work very well, and the coin value is more than €2, which means that your bag of plastic is valued €2, which is quite good. In unsorted, dirty household plastic, nobody would ever pay so much for that. In the center and east, we are less active ourselves, so we outsource the activation to other companies, and that's what happened. The coin value goes down. Our activation campaign, of course, doesn't stop on talking to people, but we are activating low-income communities and diverse community. We're working with Arabic and Suriname and Turkish centers, and we are providing, there is no awareness at all about recycling within these communities, so we are giving them, supported by a local foundation, a set of workshops where they will create artifacts made of their waste, so they will understand that there is something with it. And so we are now in November, we're going to have all sorts of workshops with these local designers. So the point is, trust people, work with people, work with the system. I am very convinced that the more I work with the local authorities, the better my system will be. Because at the beginning, we used to collect the plastic, when it was only plastic, we used to collect it ourselves with our little bike. After 200 households, we didn't have enough resources for that. So we asked the municipality to collect for ourselves. At 400 households, they said, we cannot invest in that. So we rethought the system to be included within the municipality collection system so that we could totally cut that cost. That's my point. Like, if we are a small organization, of course now we are growing, we are also working on becoming a social enterprise, the same like Foodlogica came out of the food analysis and experiment. Foodlogica now is a social enterprise, which means it's an enterprise that makes profit but especially impact. It's like a European standard definition. So we're looking to have Wasted becoming a new social enterprise so that we would be able to collaborate with more municipalities, creating localized campaign for specific kind of behavioral changes that need to happen. The point of circular economy and changing the system is topical at the moment. We, as the little funny, cute initiatives that try to do something in a very small place, we need the big players, but not only the politicians or the policymakers. We need the actuaries, we need the accountants, we need the financial gurus, because I have no idea how to make money out of this. But if I talk to a financial guru, he immediately tells me, this is a loyalty program, I put you in contact with my loyalty department. So now we are connected with PricewaterhouseCoopers, which gave a lot of advice to Foodlogica, and now is making a huge pro bono project to transform Wasted into the cryptocurrency of the future, which will not only create economic benefit, but also social benefit. So this is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, we cannot only think that the system is wrong and it will never change, and we can only do little approaches to something that will stay in our neighborhood. We need to present these ideas to the ones that know how to handle big numbers and work with them in developing, in having an impact. So this is the point that also we made with our latest publication, which is called, of course, The Wasted City, where we actually go to also an analysis of, from very small scale to nationwide initiatives related to circular economy and circular city making. And at the end, we have like these 5 statements that are more statements that try to create some kind of mindset to the reader rather than definitive issues. So I will just read this statement and you can go to lunch. So we say that ownership is dead Shared infrastructure as the cradle of new urbanity. People are the cornerstone of urban circularity. You will never walk alone. Regulation must not lag behind the niche. Without new rules, the process will be always too slow. Urban metabolism is screaming for commodity brokers. I can explain you what commodity brokers are later. Circular education is paramount for the wider population. Circularity is not the goal, it's the mean for the systemic change. We're talking about democracy, we're talking about everything. So yeah, that's how I would like to conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Francesca. It was a very inspiring talk. And yeah.
I have two questions, I guess. One is about the digitalization of the digitalization of the waste project, right? How did you, like every time we speak about digitalization, we also speak about exclusion to some extent, because those, not all social groups equally use those technologies, like the elderly. So how do you mitigate those within this project when you scale it up? So that's one question. And the other one relates to Kai's presentation earlier, and it relates to the point you mentioned at the end, that circularity is not, it's a means, right, to an end to systemic change. But when we looked at this presentation, what I noticed at least was that the introduction of circular economy at the European level would strengthen some of the existing structural divisions between East and West, perhaps South and North. So in that sense, what do you make of it? You know, if you know, like maybe just your thought on that. It's not quite related, but maybe focus on some places.
To answer the first question, very nice, good point. We are supported by the Poverty Department of the City of Amsterdam because our system is very good for low-income communities, and there is the point when we ask ourselves, they don't have a smartphone, right? So the coin system is still alive in Amsterdam North, and we are looking at the, well, again, we're working with the municipality. The municipality provides it's called the city pass for people on the welfare. This pass allows them to access discounts for like cultural and sport activities that they would never be able to have with their income. The idea is that in the future, the stock pass can be connected to the wasted coin. So again, we don't invent anything. We ask them, do you already have an infrastructure to support that? And we work with them. And this is the point. Like, of course, it took a long time before the municipality came to us and said, we like you. That was a long, rocky road, but now there is a very nice and open discussion about how to connect all of these initiatives and using their infrastructure to create innovation. And for the different, okay, I have an idea. I don't know if this is gonna happen, but I think that's good. That there are already differences within Europe, that circular economy is, in my opinion, something that will create and generate new jobs. Because finally you need low-skilled workers to produce something, which is something that went away at one point in the history of Europe, and that created a lot of problems. So ideally, these disparities between geographic regions will always be there. You always will have more up there or down there. But circularity allows an economic process that might be very, very, way more beneficial for smaller and less rich countries than, well, that's what Kai was saying, actually, at the end, than the ones that are globally connected, because they are very dependent on globalization, while the smaller ones are less, so they can adapt more easily. In my opinion, very positive opinion. In general, I don't think any of this would ever work, but that's another no. I mean, we are here in a very inspiring setting, but if we look at the global situation, it's going very bad. But that doesn't mean that we don't have to work towards something better. Yeah.
Še vprašanje?
Meni se zdi, da je samo pač bil to nadaljevanje odgovora na tvoje vprašanje. Scaling. Imaš?
Thank you, Mark. I have just one short question. To show this huge big map of the world in your presentation, showing this huge circle going from Amsterdam to China and back. And now this is your project, you have tackled one, let's say, one place. With this circle, you have tackled your local community, and now you're able to improve the waste gathering. Maybe you also improve the quality of this resource. What about the other part of the circle? Have you connected this waste collection with local production or waste processing? Or?
Yeah. As I show you, we had this lab, the local reprocessing lab, and we made some stuff. We made for example, the tree planter, right? That tree planter costs an unimaginable amount of money if you think about that tree planter. So that's when we became friends with the local recycling industry. And that's what I'm saying again, vertical integration. Like we provide, we make sure that people recycle. You make sure that you have enough material to actually have a wealthy industry. So one organization cannot do it all. The circle has to be connected. Like that's what she was talking about. Also different approaches to a space, but it's in material. It's very much obvious. Like if you think about it. So we have this representative of the Dutch recycling industry that is one of our biggest fan and friend, and he gave us a lot of advice. First was stop recycling yourself. Let us do the job. And the problem is, like just to talk forever. Eh? The problem is they don't have enough material, but they don't have enough requests. It's a big problem for an industry. So with the wasted project, we are trying also. That's our goal, to try to drive our members into consuming brands that use recycled material in their production. And this is, at the European level, this is the issue. I was at the stakeholder meeting for the plastic policy of Europe a couple of weeks ago. The problem is that the politicians blame the companies. The companies say, well, there is no market. So at the end, it's our fault. Like, we are the ones that pay a lot, and that, so we have to, it's all about us. And we have to integrate the whole circle and work with everybody, but the problem is that we need to find a way to get people to ask for recycled material, which that's a societal change that will take a while. I went a little bit off topic, I think.